Hello and welcome back to my channel where I like to have fun with all things beauty while being critical about what I accept into my collection. Today I am doing a Sephora recommendations video. What I'm going to do to start out is I'm going to talk a little bit about my strategy for this sale. So first off, the thing that everybody brings up is 20% is not that much. I will absolutely agree with that. 20% is not that much. However, for some items, it is historically the best discount. I also think it's worth mentioning that for some of these things, convenience of returns is an important part of the purchasing decision. So like for example, during the last sale, I decided to try the Hourglass foundation. I literally exchanged it 5 times before I found a good shade match. Now, if I had gotten it at a different store, I might have still been able to return it, but I would not have been able to swatch it in person, first of all. But second of all, it just would not have been as easy for me to exchange for a different shade. So, that matters to me. Sometimes, say I could get it another 5% off cheaper somewhere else, it's worth a couple dollars if it means that I can return something. So base products are a good example of that. Anything that is a little bit risky. If I even think for a second that I'm not going to want to keep something, I will buy it at Sephora. An example of that for me would be the Danessa Myricks, the palettes that had the pomades and the matte shadows. That was a formula that I really wasn't sure was going to work for me. So that in and of itself was a great reason for me to choose to purchase it at Sephora. So anything that's even a little bit experimental, I would prefer to buy at Sephora. Obviously we have Ulta now being more competitive and selling some of the same brands, so it's not as exclusive to Sephora as it used to be. I know in my area I have an equal number of Sephoras and Ultas, so they're both as easy to access. But I know that's not true everywhere, so that would play a part in it. All of that stuff matters, even when the 20% off isn't that spectacular. The return policy, at least for me, is worth at least another 20%. So it makes it a really good deal and very convenient. It's also virtually mistake-proof just because you can return things, so it's never the end of the world if something really doesn't work out. I really like having that safety net. I'm not the best about returning things, but I know for a fact that if, say, I buy something from Laura Mercier because they have a better sale, I am almost guaranteed to never send anything back through the mail, except for maybe Amazon because they've actually made it more convenient. I don't return things that I buy online. I just don't. So if I buy something from a store that has a brick and mortar that I can go back to in person, that's a way better deal for me 100% of the time. Another thing that makes it a lot easier to return things during the Sephora sale is just the fact that I'm getting things in bulk. So I'm not just buying a one-off item, which I would likely just keep, throw in the back of my drawer, forget about it, whatever. I'm buying a lot of things at once. So normally if I have to return something, it's more than just one thing. I can make the trip worth my time, and it's just a lot easier to return things during the sale than the rest of the year. So all that to say, my strategy is basically if I know that I absolutely love something, if it's a repeat purchase, that kind of thing, I might hold out for a Black Friday or Cyber Monday type of deal from the brand. Pat McGrath is a great example of that. But for the most part, my experience over the last few years at least has been that I usually don't find a sale, even from the brand, that makes me regret my purchase. We're talking 5 or 10% more. So in the scheme of things, as far as I'm concerned at least, I don't usually have a lot of regrets. I have a ton of regrets around the Ulta sale. I have almost no regrets during the Sephora sale because I can return things, and if it's not the best deal, it's usually not far off. Who I don't think is somebody who will be happy shopping the Sephora sale is anybody that gets less than 20%. If you get less than 20% off, you're almost guaranteed to get a better deal elsewhere. Creal Beauty, for example, right now is running a 20% off sale. A ton of other multi-brand retailers do 20% off. Sometimes you get a 15% off just for signing up as a new customer for a lot of these brands. So less than 20, I would probably only really bother to buy foundation and concealer. Anything else I would genuinely wait on. Also, skincare. I feel like skincare is never the best deal at Sephora because there are other websites that sell just skincare, like Skin Store, just first thing that popped into my head. They are definitely more competitive around Cyber Monday, Black Friday. So if I buy any skincare at Sephora, it's purely to indulge myself. I don't go out of my way unless there was something that I really needed. Another thing to keep in mind is that this is a percentage sale. So obviously the savings is more considerable for the more expensive items. That means, you know, this is the time that I'm focusing on something larger like an Hourglass palette where I know I'm going to wait for this sale versus something that's a little smaller and just lower priority. One of the great things about the Sephora sale, it's everything. Everything's included. So that means new items that aren't likely to go on sale at any other time, even during the holiday rush. I'll talk more about this at the end of the video, but I did just want to touch on the fact that I also spent 6 months making my sale list. So that's my favorites list. I do a really good job not purchasing anything in between spring and fall. I think I might feel differently about this sale if I did purchase at Sephora off sale times, but my suggestion would be just to definitely make lists. Go over every product, watch reviews, and that will lead to less regrets. And if you make any mistakes, just follow through with the returns. I think once I started doing that, I stopped having the guilt associated with making any mistakes during this time of year. Okay, with all of that out of the way, now I'm going to go through my favorites in every category rapid fire. So my last video where I did a get ready with me and I put all of this on my face, in that video I sort of went through and showed B-roll showing close-ups of all of these products, comparisons, that kind of thing. Now I'm just going to go through and list them. So if you're in need of any of these things, this is just my top pick from every category. So to simplify my life, I'm going to go through this in the order that I do my makeup. So number one is eyeshadow. The Natasha Denona palette all day long. I use the I Need a Nude, but I would say whichever one of these that goes best with your skin tone, it's just a flawless formula. For me, I use it almost every day to set up my look, whether I use the shimmers in this palette or I reach for another palette as a companion palette. This has been the biggest workhorse in my collection, and it has absolutely been my most used palette of all time. I also want to throw in this little single, the Moondust from Urban Decay. I know they have palettes with this now, but my feeling is this is the best of the palette, and you don't need the whole palette if you just want this. This is my most used single. It's absolutely stunning. Both of these have been out forever, so if you wanted them, you probably have them, but I did want to mention them because they are absolute must-haves for me. For eyeliner, for pencil liner, my favorite is the Makeup Forever Artist Color Pencil. I use Boundless Bisque in my waterline every day, and I use it to clean up my brow bone and my wing. My favorite liquid liner would be the Urban Decay 24/7 inks. I love the shape of this, and it lasted me forever. I did finally run out of this. It is a little bit expensive, so, you know, I don't really think it's that much better than like the KVD, but if I were to pick my number one, it would definitely be this one. I don't really have a favorite mascara right now. I guess if I had to pick one, probably the Tower 28. Just doesn't last that long. My number one foundation is the Nars Light Reflecting. I have dry, damaged skin, so I like something that leaves a glowy, hydrated finish that lasts all day and evens out my skin tone, and this delivers. My favorite concealer, so I have three. Number one is Kosas. Number two is Kulfi, and number three is Natasha Denona. All of these perform really well. I would say if you're looking for hydration, it's a toss-up between the Kosas and the Kulfi, sort of whatever has the best color match. My favorite contour is the Westman Atelier. I use the little mini guy. I never felt a need to buy a full size because I've had this for 6 months, and it's absolutely going to last me another 6 months. I use it every day. So for me, it's a color thing that just has the best color. I also really like, for powder, I like the Charlotte Tilbury, the Film Star Bronze and Glow. I don't really like the highlighter in this palette, but I do love the bronzer slash contour. It's sort of in between. My favorite powder bronzer would be the Pat McGrath, but I know that my favorite color is Nude Honey, and they don't have that at Sephora. So I'm going to go ahead and say that my new favorite would be the Makeup by Mario because it has a cool undertone. I don't actually have that powder, but I have that in the stick and the enhancer, and it's a great color on me. An honorable mention is the Gucci, just because it has a red undertone, but I don't love this formula enough for me to ever think it's worth price tag. I have shade 02. I think shade 1 would probably have been a better choice. Regardless, it can look a little bit patchy sometimes, so for that reason, it's definitely not my top recommendation. As far as creams go, I really like the Light Medium Makeup by Mario Enhancer. This can be a little bit too glowy for me sometimes, and it is very sheer. So if I wanted something more pigmented, I would go for the Say Sun Melt instead. For blush, for powder, it would probably be Pat McGrath in Flirtatious. That's what I have on today. All of this stuff is what I have on today, but except for the eyeshadow, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the Pat McGrath Flirtatious, I don't know. I always say wait for the Pat McGrath sale. However, if you're only buying 1 or 2 things, you might not actually get a better discount on her website. So for 1 or 2 items, it might be better to get at Sephora. And I do think they have minis, so it might be a good way to try the blush out. Regardless, I definitely want to mention a number 2, which would be the Hourglass. I do have the palettes, and I want to say it's a good thing to remember that with these palettes, if you only want 1 or 2, they have minis. So I always tell people if they really want to try the Hourglass formula, get a mini first before you invest in a full palette. I have 4 of these right now, and I can't say that every blush really stands that far apart. I think their permanent line is great, and these leave a really pretty finish if you like a glowy blush. For cream blush, if I'm honest, I don't really have a top spot. It's sort of a toss-up between the Lawless, Patrick Ta, and the Westman Atelier. I would say with Lawless, you could definitely get a better deal if you wait to find them on GMA deals. They're usually 50% off there, so unless you think you might want to return it, that would be a better way to purchase it. The Patrick Ta, I got the coveted not too much that I had to wait to come back in stock. This is just okay. It's good, but now that I have 2 of these, I don't think I'm going to buy any more. I sort of thought that this would be my new everyday blush, and I actually use the Lawless more. I also really like the Westman Atelier. I have 1 or 2 of these, and these are a really nice formula. So again, I really like the minis. I think they last a really long time, so they're a really good value. For highlight, if I'm honest, my favorite highlights are almost always Pat McGrath. I like a number of her formulas. I would say there's a good chance they're not going to carry them anymore at Sephora. So if you see any that happen to go on sale, that was the last time I got one. On the Sephora website, it was 50% off. It was a great deal. But other than that, I would say for sure the new Fenty highlighters are fantastic. And if you want something a little bit more subtle, again, Hourglass makes great powder products. For liquid highlighter, I would probably go with Charlotte Tilbury. Those wands have been out forever, but they're popular for a reason. They're very good. For setting / finishing powder, I really like the Hourglass in Dim Light. I also, for the rest of my face, I tend to only use that under my eyes. For the rest of my face, I'll use either the Kosas in Featherly, the Cloud Set. This is great for dry skin. I also really love the Givenchy. I'm only mentioning that in case they change the formula because I have not tried the new one, but the old formula is great. I feel like they're probably going to reformulate it again, so throwing that in there just in case. For lips, for lipstick, my favorite is the Charlotte Tilbury in Wedding Bells. This is like a much better version of Pillow Talk for me. It's what I'm wearing today. And I also really love the Patrick Ta lip gloss, and she's expensive. I don't think this is a great formula. If I was looking for nourishing, I would probably go with like the Summer Fridays or a number of other lip products. Ole Hendrickson makes a great one. If I'm going for aesthetics though, it's Patrick Ta all day. If I lost all of my lip products, I would actually go out of my way for this. Again, not because it's hydrating, nourishing, or does anything that great. It just really makes me happy to look at the container because it's so freaking sparkly. That alone makes this worth it for me. Finally, for setting / finishing sprays, my favorite is the Hourglass Veil. I absolutely adore this for bringing my makeup back to life if I've used a little bit too much powder without causing any dryness whatsoever. The sprayer is fantastic, and I buy this every time I run out of it during the sale. Okay, so that is everything. That is all of my favorites in every category rapid fire. Now I'm going to go through some of the other things that are not my number ones, but that I highly recommend. So number one, if you like fun eyeshadow, the Danessa Myricks Lightwork palette. The quality is phenomenal and it's brand new, so 20% off is a great deal. I have a whole video dedicated to just that I'll link below, but if you like color, it's fantastic. These Summer Fridays, the minis kit, I did just pick this up when it came back because I thought it was going to sell out again before the sale. It didn't. It's still available, which is great because it's just lip balm. Like, I don't think it's worth paying $25 for that amount of lip balm, but regardless, I think it's the best way to try it. Phlur Vanilla Skin, I have a full bottle from the last sale, but I don't think that that has longevity, so I don't think it's worth paying full price for that, but it's absolutely delicious, so now would be the time to grab that. I did pick up a travel size of the perfume version, and I can confirm it really doesn't last either, so I don't think that's a good investment. I would stick with the body spray for sure. And Sephora collection, I think I forgot to mention it earlier, but their brushes are fantastic. The Pro brushes. I don't know about the other brushes, but anything from the Pro line has been amazing. I put my brushes through a lot, and those brushes have held up just as good as anything else. They feel exactly like BK Beauty or any of the other premium brush lines. They're fantastic. I also really like their single shadows. Not the ones in the palettes. I'm not talking about those, but the ones that come in the singles. Be prepared if you buy them online though, they will almost guarantee, probably 80% of the time, they'll arrive broken, but you can hand press them back in. If you're willing to deal with that, then they're worth it. Otherwise, not so much. You know, in my eyeshadow collection, for example, they don't really stand out, but the quality is fantastic if they happen to have a shade you're looking for. And finally, the LYS Beauty, their Cream Glow blushes. I have the ones in the pot container, but I know that they have stick sets now as well. I think those are great. I don't think they have the longest staying power in the world, but I think the shades are fantastic and they're really, really nice. So I do like that formula as well. All right, so that aside, what am I definitely picking up? So number one, I'm picking up a new Nars Foundation. I do that every year. So I'm going to try yet another shade of that, possibly two, hopefully one. I'm good on concealer, so I don't need to re-up on any of that. I'm absolutely buying one of these Hourglass liquid blushes. I'm torn between which color. I have both Scene and Whim on my loves list. Hopefully I can narrow it down before the sale and I only buy one. I also have the Kosas mini blush. I have the trio on here. When these first came out, I really went down the rabbit hole trying to pick one shade that I wanted, and I struggle with decisions at baseline, but needless to say, I would way prefer getting minis. Minis of anything except for concealer and foundation for me are always the way to go, but especially with this because that way I can try three. So I have no idea if this is going to come back in stock or not, but if it does, I'm definitely buying that. In terms of sets, there really weren't a lot of sets this year. You know, I always feel like sets are complicated because so often you get mini travel sizes. Sometimes they even try to get away with sample sizes, and that's not a great deal. So you have that going on, and then just products or shades that you don't want. So often I justify buying one of these sets because I want to try the formulas, but it's not the shade I would have picked. So I have to really try to be realistic with the percent of all of these that I'm actually going to use. The only one that really caught my eye was the Bold and Blushing Blush and Lip Set. However, I own one of the products already, so it wouldn't actually be a good deal for me. It's one of the full-size products, so I'm going to do my best to resist, but that definitely caught my eye. I've had the Eadem Lipbalm on my list for like 6 months. It has been out of stock forever, so I don't actually expect that to come back. I have the Kulfi, I have the You're an Icon kit, as well as the single in Sona Sona. I'm not really sure if those are different shades. They're different names, but they're described the same, so I don't know. I mean, I'm still sort of on the fence about that. I love the color, but I don't like potted eyeshadows. I pretty much never use the ones I have. So I really have no business buying that, but sometimes I can't help wanting these things anyway. So that's on my maybe list. So we're firmly in maybe list territory now. I also have the Westman Atelier Mini Baby Cheeks Blush Set. I think this set is adorable. However, I do think it's expensive for 3 minis for myself, so I'm probably going to buy it as a present. I really think those sets make really beautiful gifts. I have a Sarah Creal lipstick on here. Honestly, I hate the packaging and I haven't heard the best things about Sarah Creal, but the one reason this is on the list is because it's the shade Madam President, and I just absolutely love that. I'm here for all of her shade names, but I don't think that's enough of a reason. I don't have that kind of money. I don't have the kind of money where I can buy anything because of the shade name. Like, packaging, whatever. I've been an idiot and I bought things for the packaging before, but like shade name, that's like a bridge too far. I don't think I can let myself do that. Then we have the Huda Icy Nude Eyeshadow Palette. You know, on one hand, people are all up in arms because it's her last big palette. I think all that means is she's gonna go to like 12 pans now instead. I'd only be disappointed with that is if the formula changed dramatically, because these larger palettes have a really nice formula. Her 9 pans, I hate those. I hate the formula in those. So if the 12 pans or whatever smaller eyeshadow she comes out with going forward is this nicer formula, I think that's great. It'll be at a better price point. Everybody's happy. So I'm not like freaking out or anything that this is the last big palette, but I have a few of these and I've liked all the ones I had. So I do want to swatch this in store, but I do think I'm probably going to pick it up. Then I have the Myricks Great Skin Priming and Firming Moisturizer. I think I'm definitely going to get this because I need a makeup primer. I don't have a good primer right now. And I did try the Myricks Great Skin, the serum. I thought that was really nice, but it has niacinamide in it. And like, I'm up to here with niacinamide. I don't need any more niacinamide. So I wouldn't actually purchase that again. But I have super dry skin. I need a moisturizer / primer, so this looks really nice. I'm definitely going to buy that one. The Danessa Myricks Blush Set looks really cute, but unfortunately I haven't tried this formula, so I'm probably going to pass on that. I do think it's a good deal though. Dew Skin is now at Sephora, so I love their hydrating cream. I don't need another one of those right now, but they don't go on sale very often, so I would absolutely pick that up at Sephora. Right, and I think the last thing on my list is the Charlotte Tilbury, the Matte Beauty Wand in shade Pillow Talk. This has been on my list forever, and I haven't picked it up because, frankly, I have too many liquid blushes. Like, I just have too many liquid blushes in my collection, and it's really hard for me to justify buying another one, even though when I did swatch this in store, and I really like the color of it. So that's a solid maybe. Okay, and I think the real last thing on this list is the Dior, the new foundation stick. I'm tempted by that because it looks really nice, but honestly, I have the Tom Ford foundation stick and I don't like that one. I don't think that foundation sticks typically sit very nicely on my skin. They don't really do me any favors when it comes to texture, especially dry skin. So I don't think this is really meant for dry skin. So I'm going to do my best to just walk away from that one because it's tempting, but I can like see from here that it's not going to work out. So I'm going to try to make the right decision about that for once. So I'm just popping in here to talk about the Patrick Ta release. I forgot because it wasn't on the website yet, but this is coming to Sephora on October 29th. And the price is $42 like we thought. You know, when these first came out, I was immediately drawn to the one on screen here, the Talk to My Team duo. I don't know. I mean, I know that it doesn't really bring anything new to my collection, but the curiosity has definitely gotten to me, so I do think I'm going to pick one up. I will say I was not altogether shocked by the price tag of these, but it does limit the number of them that I am willing to try. It does raise my expectations, so if this is not good, I am absolutely returning it 100%. So there's that. I mean, I'm just happy that they're dropping before the sale because genuinely, I don't think I could justify this at full price. Certainly not with the collection that I have. but we'll see. You know, and like I said, if I do try any of these things on my maybe list and they don't work out, I can return them. So that's why I don't get bitter about the Sephora sale. I really look forward to it every year because I feel like it's almost mistake proof. Unless I was somebody that repeatedly bought too much and overspent, I don't really do that. I utilize my favorites list and I don't shop at Sephora outside of the sales. When I genuinely look at my purchase history, it goes from spring to fall and there's almost nothing in between save 1 or 2 items. So if that weren't the case, maybe I would feel differently. But I tend to do better if I stick to Sephora. I get in trouble more when I get these out of the blue emails saying save 40% on this random stuff that nobody wants. And it's like a Tuesday in September, so I'm not spending a lot of money. So I can justify $25 here or there. I get way more in trouble with stuff like that than I do at the Sephora sale. The Sephora sale is almost entirely stuff that I want. So for that reason, I look forward to it every year. And I don't know, I'm here for anything that is lighthearted or fun right now. So I'm popping back in during editing because I forgot to mention what was on my eyes. So what ended up happening is I was wearing my Natasha Denona Glam Face Palette for this video. And then I realized that they stopped carrying that at Sephora. It is still available on the website and at a few other places, but and they still have the deeper version, but they don't have the light version, and that's the one that I'm wearing. So I wound up scrapping the whole video and re-recording it, but today is the only time I had to re-record it, and today is also the day that the Blend Bunny and Robert Welsh palette came in the mail, so I couldn't help myself. I dropped everything and I put that palette on. So today I am wearing Blend Bunny eyeshadow, but every other thing here is from Sephora, and I also have multiple looks with my Natasha Denona palette in my last video. So if you want to see that more up close, more in depth, definitely check that video out. And I'm also going to link my playlist that has my favorite in every category. So everything always has timestamps. So that's available if you're looking for anything more in depth. But this is Blend Bunny, and I will be doing a review of that palette. I'm not sure when that's going to come out because I do want to get multiple looks and I really want to sort of do a deep dive on that. So that will probably be either next week or the week after that. But spoiler, I love it. It's phenomenal. The formula is stunning. So I definitely look forward to making that video in a couple weeks. But for now, back to Sephora. I hope this video was helpful. I hope you're having a fabulous day wherever you are. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.